That is loud. Okay, let me resize this window so that the content is a little easier to see. Sorry for that. Okay, that's good. Not at my desk, so these things are a little more difficult sometimes. Okay, I think we're good. All right, so topic, stop guessing about trust. I have the learning objectives here. We'll walk through the 4 aspects of trust, which is an article by or a thin book by Harvard Business Review that I came across a bunch of years ago that I found useful. Then we'll diagnose some real breakdowns in commitment and communication. Then we'll walk through Flores has an agreement cycle that's useful that sort of touches on the 4 aspects of trust in a practical way. And it deals with communication cycles and like commitment and renegotiation and that kind of stuff. Any comments or questions about that? Okay. All right. Okay, let's walk through the 4 aspects of trust here. See if I can make it the right size so I can. Oh yeah, they're all on here now. Okay, perfect. Okay, so we've got 4 aspects of trust here. Hit the menus. Oh, nice. We got sincerity, reliability, competence, and care. So I'm going to read through these really quick, like in 30 seconds or a minute. And then afterwards, I'm going to open it up for sort of comments on which one you're like, oh, that was obvious, or which one of these might be like, oh, that's new to me about the 4 aspects. So let me read through that really quick. So sincerity is the assessment that you are honest, that you say what you mean and mean what you say. You can be believed and taken seriously. It also means when you express an opinion, it is valid, useful, and backed by sound thinking and evidence. Finally, it means that your actions will align with your words. Reliability is the assessment that you meet commitments you make and that you'll keep your promises. Competence is the assessment that you have the ability to do what you say you're doing or propose to do. In the workplace, it usually means that other person means that the other person believes you have the requisite capacity, skills, knowledge, and resources to do the particular job or task. And care is the assessment that you have other people's interest in mind as well as your own when you make decisions and take actions. Of the 4 assessments of trustworthiness, care is in some ways the most important for building lasting trust. When people believe you are only concerned with your self-interest, they don't consider their interests as well. Can't. I'm not going to read the rest of it, but it basically saying care and sincerity. Cares is important. Of these 4, what questions or comments do you guys have about them?
Well, I can say that I was surprised that you can be believed and taken seriously is insincerity. Because I would.
Oh, just the wording?
Yeah, that's not what I would put it. I would put it like in a competence that people believe and take you seriously because they believe that you can do what you say you're going to do. But here it's put in a sincerity, so I'm curious about that.
Yeah, I don't know if the word is that important, but you would have put that into competence, is what you're saying?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, how many people overestimate their own capacity, and then as a manager, you're sort of like, "Huh, you think you can do this on your own, really?" And so sometimes, people set themselves stretch goals that you do not want to support.
I have a good one there, actually, with sincerity and competence to kind of break apart the difference. This actually happens with my best friend. I once let him borrow a bicycle for Burning Man. So we've all been to Burning Man. You need bicycles out there, and I let him borrow it. And then he left it out in the rain after Burning Man. And if you've ever been to Burning Man, you know that anything that you don't clean or leave out in the rain after Burning Man rusts straight through. So he took my favorite bike to Burning Man, and then it rusted straight through after that. So what I learned about him, which still allows me to be his friend, he was sincere about taking care of the bike. He's just not competent in the skills necessary to do that. So I could take him seriously that he wanted to do it, in what he was saying, but he wasn't competent in that particular area of like loaning and taking care of items. So if I do loan things to him, I just know that they may not come back in the same sort of quality, in that. So I think that would be sort of the difference for me.
Okay.
You can be taken seriously, not lying to you. Maybe that part about being backed by sound evidence. If there is evidence to get, you've gotten it kind of thing. I don't know. That might fall into a competence thing. What else? What else
Or
are you
think
guys?
about, think about kids, teenagers.
Right. Right.
They think they know what they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, sincerity may be more of intent and that like in the Girl Scout pledge, my thoughts, my words, and my deeds all match.
Yeah.
The-
Words,
and
deeds. Sincerity would be in thoughts and words, and deeds would
but
be confidence.
the sincerity would be that it's sort of that there is a match among all of them, not a inconsistency.
Got it.
That you'll do what you said and you'll say what you think.
Mm.
Of course, competence may get in your way of doing what you said. That if you were not capable of evaluating how much you could do, and you said you would do something that you weren't physically, that you just couldn't manage. But that's not a sincerity problem, that's a competence problem.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with Tammy on that. A great example I had is I made plans with a friend well in advance and kept checking in with them, making sure that the plans were still there, were still valid, we were still doing them. And I knew he cared, but he was just not competent at keeping his schedule. And he wound up realizing he had 5 things scheduled all at the same time, including his plans with me, that basically sabotaged his reliability. So I mean, you can have some of those and not the others. He cared, he was sincere, it just wasn't competent and thus not reliable.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, they clearly overlap. This is not.
Yeah, and you don't. I mean, this isn't the truth, right? This is a model that might be useful. What it taught me mostly that trust isn't this one ubiquitous thing, and a lot of times in the work world, we just think of integrity, doing what you say and saying what you do, as trust. But there's a lot more to trust than just integrity. Um, are you reliable? Well, that's probably kind of do you have the competence to do that well? Like, well, what level of quality? And then are you sincere when you say it? And then the care one. And sometimes we think about trust as vulnerability. Sometimes we think about it as integrity. But it could have 4 aspects, right? Or it could have 6 even. right? So you're just like, okay, trust isn't this one thing. It actually is an amalgamation of a lot of different things that we put together. So as a coach, you know, you have options.
And I mean, what I'm hearing is if I come to the conclusion that someone is not trustworthy, I mean, that's an easy sort of, I got disappointed, and now I just use one label instead of realizing, oh, he didn't know what he was doing. So I mean, he's sincere and cares, but he was just in over his head. And that's a different kind of break of trust than someone who's insincere and just dragging me along. And it helps me to come to better conclusions about, yeah, how to manage the relationship in the future versus just sort of a global label of untrustworthy.
Yeah. Like the easiest to resolve are like reliability and competence. Competence, you just like, well, maybe you slate back, you just ask different things, you know, a different level or quality of things, or get them support or have them learn. Reliability, a lot of that we're going to cover in this particular one is like, well, how do you actually make commitments that are clear? A lot of times it's like clarity, you know, with the reliability. And then we, you know, as coaches, we talk about care a lot. The care is actually just being vulnerable, right? And taking in considering others. But a lot of leaders don't. You know, a lot of leaders or other people are single-minded, right? And we have techniques around care, like Scrum teams, for instance. The way we implement care, having each other's backs, is you give the team one goal, right? You give the team a Scrum goal for 2 weeks, which the whole team is working on. You automatically have each other's back because it's impossible to individually do things, right? Because you have one single goal. So a lot of these things are built into the frameworks that we actually use already. Let's move on to the next. You feel free to make more comments about this if you like. But the next part. Let me see where we're going now. Oh, okay, this will be good. So this part, I'd like you to identify a work and a personal breakdown, something that it didn't work, and then write down like either a small paragraph or like if you like bullets, maybe like 5 bullet points on each one, like some of the context, like you know, if it was one earlier today when I missed yesterday when I missed the bus with the kids, I kind of noticed the bus was coming late. You know, I didn't prep the kids. They don't have the confidence. My youngest is 5, so he doesn't have the confidence to put his own socks on. And I had to do that. And there's some back and forth. And then, I knew it might come faster because it was a holiday and there'll be less people on it. And I just didn't account for all of that. Right. So that's sort of a breakdown, there's a breakdown and a description of the breakdown as it was coming up. So, like you to take maybe a minute or two now and write that down just for yourself. You write down a work and a personal breakdown just in a few sentences or a few bullet points. Okay. Who needs more time?
Good enough, I think. I don't know.
Okay, so what we're going to go through now is, given those two examples, you've got hopefully a personal and a work example that you've sort of thought of. We're going to walk through an agreement cycle. And this is the Flores agreement cycle. It's a way of creating a communication with another person where there's clarity on what's being agreed to, and allowing for counter offers and renegotiations, and that type of activities. So I'm going to walk through the Flores cycle, and we can go a little bit into each section of it, but let me give you a brief overview and then a brief description, and then we'll see how it applies to your particular activity. But the model starts with a request or an offer. So this is like, what you need, not how. A lot of times people come to you with hows, like, hey, I need a PowerPoint. And it's like, oh, why do you need that? What's the actual objective? It's to communicate this to this set of people, right? So you get your request or offer, and then then you get to negotiate, and that could be like the when you can get it done by, or if the objective is too big, communicate to 100 people. It's like I can get to these 5 people, communicate this to these 5 people. You do counter offers back and forth, or scope it out, and then there ends with some sort of promise or commitment. Then there's a execution phase, and this is important. You keep renegotiation and assessing satisfaction as you go. We see this a lot in Agile, Scrum. You make a commitment, you meet the commitment, you assess it. That sets up some formal boundaries for renegotiations and assessment. And if you do scaled Agile, it's even very clear with business objectives and stuff. So that's the renegotiation satisfaction. And then there's at the very end, an assessment of satisfaction. Did you get what you needed? You asked for this. Did I deliver that? Does that solve the problem? That kind of thing. And we're building trust through this cycle, in particularly like sincerity, reliability, competence, and care, right? So if you bring all of those 4 aspects to this model as you're going through, it should increase trust. I have more detailed versions of these if you like what a request is and what it's not, and stuff. What questions do you guys have about the Flores model?
I would be really interested to hear what you have to say about your distinctions around what a request is and what it is not.
Great. Yeah. So I'm displaying it right now. Let's see. A request is not a hint, a hope, or a statement of importance. A request must specify what, by when, and conditions of satisfaction. Clarity is kindness. So ask your question again, or what else would you like to know?
No, that answered it. Thank you. No, I've done other training, and there's other ways of defining that. So this was different. So thank you.
Oh, okay. A negotiation and promise phase. Only the receiver can make a promise, and the options are yes.
Maybe just as a side note.
Yeah.
we are remarkably challenged to make direct requests. And in a lot of these, like, in sort of general communication, oh, I wish someone would sweep the sidewalk. And then there was sort of my roundabout way of making a request, and a hint is like, I think you should sweep the sidewalk. And then we get mad that the hint didn't land, and now I blame the other person for, not paying attention. So I think that the point here is we are shy, indirect, and polite a lot of the times, and that does not count as a request. The discomfort of actually explicitly saying, I request that you would clean up the sidewalk or, pick up the socks. And that's, you're sort of remarkably indirect a lot of the times.
Huh. I request.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And there's in personal relationships, there's times to make requests and times not to, right? But sharing your feelings is totally a valid thing. You just can't assume that the thing is going to get, like, I'm so frustrated by the dishes being dirty today or all the time. I understand that you're frustrated. Do you want to share more of your feelings? Right? Like, it's a feeling listening conversation versus an actual request. And if you feel there's a request in there, you'd be like, oh, is there an actual request? Do you want me to do something to help with this, or do you just want me to listen? Right? So there's sort of the boundaries of like solving it versus actually caring for the person. So in the personal sense, there's like that. And this will happen at work a lot of times too. People get overwhelmed and be like, I'm overwhelmed by, this. Okay, I understand. Is there any support you need? I hear a lot of leaders say that is there any support you need? And that's where clear requests kind of get made, sort of up the chain for support. Also, a side thing here is if you're asking for the how, like, I need you to clean the dishes in the next 10 minutes. That's not going to be, I mean, it's a request, right? Would you clean the dishes in the next 10 minutes? It could be the request, but a better request is like, sharing, like, when the dishes are dirty, it's difficult for me to cook in the kitchen, and then you would be like, would you help me keep the dishes clean so I can cook? Right. And then you'd have a counter offer, clarity around, okay, when do you cook and like this, and what do you need to support you in cooking? Because the goal is actually cooking, not cleaning the dishes. If you get back to that request around it, it's like the ability to cook in the kitchen, and dishes are getting in the way. So the side of cleaning the dishes is, if I was your sous chef, would that make a difference? Right. I was doing all the prep and you were doing the cooking versus the actual cleaning the dishes.
I'm moving in the next room over, and there are no more dirty dishes in the kitchen.
Yeah.
And you can cook.
That's a very good comment, that keep an eye on a goal, that the goal is cooking, not the dishes.
So this gets back to the agreement phase, yes, counter offer, no, asking questions, being clear. Silence is not agreement. We got to learn that, like if you say, hey, would you do this, and people don't respond, that's not agreement. Also, same for you. If you're silent, that's not a no, right? People may not take it as a no. So speaking is important. And obviously I'm talking in work cases. Execution, the promise is being fulfilled. And this is the renegotiation phase. If it was easy to do and clear, we probably wouldn't be doing it. We wouldn't be the people doing it, right? We're smart. We're working on stuff. We're working on complicated stuff that's not easily delivered. So there is going to be learning. And so early negotiation is professionalism, not failure. So sharing what you learned and how it impacts is really key. And the assessment, have the requester explicitly declare satisfaction or not. No acknowledgement equals incomplete agreement. So at the end, this is a thank you, welcome cycle kind of thing. I don't know if you've ever done that before, where if you thank someone but they don't say you're welcome, it's like an incomplete sort of cycle. So it's not really consumed or received until the person says, I got what I needed. I asked for this and you gave me that kind of thing. And doesn't necessarily need to be a thank you associated with it. But the acknowledgement is just a statement of fact. I asked for this, you gave me that. Completes the cycle. I don't know how many sort of scaled agile framework people. Do we have a lot of scaled agile framework people in the room? I can use examples from that.
Not me.
No, anyone else? Anyone a SAFe practitioner? Okay. I saw Rob's hand go up. I'll basically state it. SAFe works in a lot of these sort of things into the framework, which is kind of nice. SAFe is built on Scrum, but Scrum is Agile. And then right above that, it's all a bunch of lean practices, which implement a lot of this. They use the idea of quarterly planning. They identify business objectives. That's like what the business actually wants to get done. But then you rate them with a certain amount of like value, like proposed value. And then at the end, you come back and assess if you got the value that you wanted from that. So there's like clear numbers at the end about, and this is from the business owner side. Subjectively, did the business owner think they got what they expected at the end? So there's like a very clear step at the very, very end. And for a lot of people, it's the main measure on how they judge whether or not they're successful. It's like a customer satisfaction score almost. It's called the program predictability metric. Can you meet your expectations? Okay. So let's. I think we want to go to breakouts now, right? We'll go to breakouts. We're actually a small group. I don't think we're going to do breakouts. We're very small. Okay, so we're very small. So here I'm based on your examples, share what you're seeing was maybe the breakdown or what you're learning about your particular example, either from the 4 aspects of the Flores model where you said, oh, this is where the breakdown occurred in my personal or work environment. If you need to change the names to protect the innocent, feel free to do that. Who would like to share first?
I can.
Yeah, please, Alina.
So like quickly, the situation was that I was teaching someone how to do accounting in the HOA. And because person was behind, I prepped the report for him and let him finish cleaning the numbers to help him finish his task on time. And then what I discovered is that instead of finishing his numbers, which was a learning curve for him, he did what he do the best because he's a communication manager. He edited my report to beyond recognition. And so I had very visceral reaction to that, obviously. Mm-hmm. And so looking at your framework, I'm thinking that that I was not able to, my reaction was so bad to it that I was not able to keep the eye on the actual goal and request that that I'm spending time with him to teach him know-how of the accounting, and let's focus on that and like disregard the stupid formatting or whatnot at all. So and after that we could have gone into negotiation and further steps, but I think I failed at the step one. I lost the goal right away from my reaction.
Do you think, well, I mean, it sounded like you asked him to do something specific and that he didn't do it. Now, do you feel like your request was clear and they didn't go through the negotiation phase, or did they really not commit? Did they really not make a promise? Like, what do you think failed there? Maybe they made a promise and just didn't do it. So maybe it's a competence thing.
No, he did do the part of cleaning the rest of the data and producing income statements.
Oh, he did.
So he did, yeah. However, he produced incomplete income statements. Not incomplete, but inaccurate. The numbers didn't match. And he told me that he spent 4 hours editing my report for a better readability.
Okay. Got it.
He did complete his part, but instead of focusing on making sure that the numbers are actually correct and understanding how accounting works, he went into what he knows how to do best. He is a communication manager, and he added bullet points and indents and colors and whatnot.
Right.
But he missed the point that it's a accounting report and numbers must match.
Right.
And so...
Yeah.
So your conditions of satisfaction weren't clear. Is that possible?
Possible. I think everything's possible.
Yeah. Yeah, like having the numbers be accurate as the primary need for the thing. And I'm also going back to the 4 aspects here.
Mm-hmm.
Like part of it might have been this care thing that they may not have had your best interest. Like you may not. It's kind of like a break in care. I don't know. One idea is you spent this time with them to help them, and they kind of threw away your support, right? And they kind of defaulted back, or it might have dropped into a competence thing that you thought they were able to do something that ultimately they couldn't actually do.
Yeah, I guess maybe I could have been clear that, hey, I'm helping you to learn the numbers, so let's focus on you producing the accurate numbers, and I put request that whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe I could have been more clear with that side, and maybe I could have added some limitations that I have only this much time to help you with numbers. Let's really focus that you know how to calculate this all.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
Maybe that would have helped.
Yeah, it's part of the
Yeah,
offer.
he certainly did care. He did care. He just cared about the thing that is closest to him, which is like the competence. I guess speaks to competence somewhat.
I mean,
having your back, learning a new thing.
Like this thing right here with care, it basically says it feels like the break in trust with this person is that they don't have your back. You had a limited amount of time to work with them, and you needed them to learn how to do the numbers, and they did not have your self-interest. Your interest in like prioritizing your life in such a way that this only sort of uses so much of your personal time. They had their self-interest, meaning I'm going to use my skills, but they didn't have your interests in mind in working here. That's my guess if I had to say what the break was. How does that speak to you?
I think I'll go with what Walker was suggesting first, that I could have been clear on the priorities in expressing my needs. I think if I would explain clearer that, hey, my goal is there to hand it off to you, so I need to know that you really know how to calculate the numbers. So let's focus on this. I'll help you writing the body of the report, but please, I request that you actually produce accurate numbers.
Yeah. That's great.
And I would double check. That would have been probably for him better to where to focus on.
And just as an alternative, and it's sort of interesting, yeah, how much this depends on interpretation, or how much this actually might help to have sort of clarifying feedback conversations later, because we're making a bunch of stuff up here. But it's sort of at the level of competence. At his level of competence, the number looked good or good enough, or and therefore he tried to help by adding color and indents so that it became more legible. And it was a little bit over his head to realize, that the way they add up isn't actually useful.
Yeah, that they actually don't add up. Yeah.
Competence can be seen as quality sometimes, like they're not able to meet a certain level of quality, or understand why quality level is important, or even how to get to a certain level of quality. So yeah, it could be.
Let's have someone else share. I'm curious.
Yeah, that was a great one. Who else would like to share?
I can go.
Yeah, Karsten.
So the situation I was putting down was that I had a team that we had some very clear goals of what we needed them to do. They had some somewhat outlandish requests in order to get this done. And we negotiated to the point where, okay, we could meet the request once they weren't as outlandish. And then ultimately, the team didn't deliver. The team had the competency, they had the know-how, they had done this sort of thing before. But really, what it boiled down to is they knew if they stalled for long enough, the project was going to go away and they weren't going to have to do it. So it was a matter of care that they didn't care about getting the project done, whereas I, being the contract PM who had been brought in to bring this project to finish, genuinely cared about that, and so was not in a position to do anything. Whereas they could just twiddle their thumbs. They were full-time people, and they were going to stay on staff, and they were running out the clock, so they didn't have to do the project.
Was there some lack of sincerity too there?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, I mean, their initial saying that, okay, yes, we're going to do this project with you, but here's what we need to do it is, they knew at that point that they didn't care. They knew at that point that they were not, whatever happens in 3 months, this project is going to either be built or be shelved, and they would still be here, and I would not.
Using the Flores model, how do you think there's something you could have done to sort of make this better?
Yeah, during execution, we could have been having a tighter cycle of basically the assessment and the approval of satisfaction. I had really wanted to run this in a agile model, and they instead were insisting that I do waterfall, and of course, water died.
Yeah, water died. I think waterfall, waterboarding. Sometimes it's useful, but yeah, not really. Okay. Great. anything else anyone wants to make a comment or has a question about that particular one before we go into another example? And I also didn't realize this was 2 hours. I thought it was 1 hour. So we might go kind of short today. I hope you guys don't mind. I thought it was 1 hour, and I'm trying to hurry up to get through the material. So we may go to like an hour and 15 or something, and then
no worries.
Yeah.
Conversation goes till conversation goes. If it dies, it dies.
That's perfect. All right. Rob, I see you're on video. Would you be willing to go next?
No, actually, I was speaking of kids. I had a teenage interruption, so I wasn't able to get it fully fleshed out. So,
okay.
Nothing right now. So, following along.
Yeah, if you think of any sort of breakdown that you had.
Well, I could actually. So I was kind of going. Speaking of which, so I didn't have a professional level. So, and if you guys are familiar with situational leadership, I think we kind of got into competency, or you could say maturity, like teams. So as a leader, and if you're, I don't know, if you be a team leader, if you're asking somebody or a team to do things, you need to take in consideration their ability to do it. So if they're like super, you know them really well and they're super competent or mature, then you say, go do it, make it so, in Star Trek terms. Whereas if they're like beginners, we walk them through step by step by step, and there's intermediaries. So I think it kind of, what I'm hearing you guys come up with is hopefully assessing, what their ability is to do what you're asking. And as Elena kind of pointed out, I think there's a lot of assumptions. I do like the way there's some negotiation. However, like in my case with a teenager, you get emotion in that too. Like, go do this, and it can be like a complete misunderstanding. Like you've even seen them do this, and like they are competent, but maybe for whatever reasons they're in a hurry or whatever. I think this is unprofessional because I hopefully you don't see this in the workplace too, but it could be like they just kind of do a quick job, right? And you get the feedback, this is not done. You cannot go out the door because you're supposed to do these errands before you go out and with your friends, kind of thing. So that's what got me thinking about that. And then I guess later on, then they run at the door, or you get into this whole emotional thing, like you're grounded, like, or I don't know. It'd be nice to have I'd like this sort of thing though too, where it's hopefully calm and like saying, look, can we talk about this? And here's my feedback. You said you're going to do it. I expected this. So that's what I'm kind of getting from what you're saying here.
Yeah. I was thinking through, like, I don't have teenagers yet, but I have kids that throw tantrums. And my particular one was about dealing with a 5-year-old about leaving on time. And I said, I can do 10 more minutes and then we have to go, kind of thing. And he, like at 5, was just not capable of understanding that. And then I think about teenagers, and what I hear is that their emotions go all crazy. And similarly, they may not be able to, like, at certain points, just not be able to, like they were able to when they were 7, but now that they're 14, they're just not able to do that thing anymore because all the other facilities and emotions that come on board.
Priorities.
Priorities.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a real interesting one. I'm wondering, and that this brings me to the assessing might need to be happening more often than you did before, right? You're talking about with the team, you could trust them, but they go back and forth. They go through maturity and drops, and the same with a human being. They get more emotions, or for me, it's like if it's later in the day and closer to night, I have to check more than if it's earlier in the day when they, I can trust they'll go brush their teeth, but later in the day, I have to literally stand with them and to brush their teeth, right? Depending on their emotional state and mental state due to being tired or hungry. Yeah.
So I think a lot depends on how well you know whoever you're with in the conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There's going to be, I just realized there's going to be a whole new world coming our way. Assessing competence is going to get a lot harder when there's AI in the mix. create me that PowerPoint deck, or summarize our pitch in a deck so that I can be in the meeting in 2 days, and you sort of pass that on. And then sort of the sincerity factor of like, oh, I'll crank this into AI, and I'll end up with 15 slides, at least on the surface, that look reasonable. And then by the time you're in the meeting, you're actually trying to deliver, you realize this somebody did not think this through. But it gets harder and harder to assess, like, do I trust this person, to take the care it takes? Or do I get sloppy, good-looking, fancy slides that just don't support the story you're trying to tell or the information you're trying to pass on?
Yeah, we have that right now. We do it to a lot of AI notes and stuff, and we have a specific folder where we put rough drafts, and then once they've been reviewed, we put them in a different sort of folder. They've been reviewed and approved, like the quality is high enough to share with folks. So that ability to, or that the confidence in people's ability to review and check AI work will be a new skill level. That'll be an interesting one.
Yeah, interesting.
Thanks for sharing that, Rob. Anything else you want to say before we go into the next person?
No, this is very interesting and applicable in my life. Thank you.
All right. We have Tammy and
Margot.
Margot. Yeah, I was going to say that. I was like, oh, I bet that was Margot. Tammy and Margot, are you guys willing to come on and share any of your scenarios? You may or may not be able to, and I understand, especially if you're driving. Don't worry about it.
I'm okay. I'm okay to do it.
Yeah, perfect.
So, I'll just say it. So there was a work breakdown I considered in team building on one team, and there was no trust, there was no cameras, there was no participation, and there was no willingness to share equally among the team to build the kind of buy-in and psychological safety needed to kind of collaborate. So I don't know that this is the best example based on what you're saying, but what it came down to, that there were the haves who had a good schedule, and there were the have-nots who had a very offset schedule. And this was divided along skin color exactly. Yeah. And so I guess it broke down in the request phase, because I, tasked with building an agile team, was trying to actually build teamwork. So I guess the request was that we make that more equitable in order to build the foundation for increasing trust and a sense of team across the entire team, not just those people in the US who are given, a normal working day schedule.
Right.
So I guess what happened was I made the request and was given, a resounding no, at least by a certain vocal portion of the team.
Right, to make it more equitable. Yeah, I see that. And that was that
I know, solving institutional racism maybe outside the scope of this meeting.
Especially, yeah. No, it's fine. When you made that request, was that in the larger group that you made that request, and the answer was no in front of the larger group? or was that a side conversation?
Yes, it was. And I have since, I have some thoughts about that. I think going in, my thought was to like be very above board and like transparent with everybody and not be seen to be kind of like scurrying around behind the scenes. But it might have gone better if I had floated the idea individually prior to doing that. I mean, hindsight is 2020. One of the problems I was trying to solve was that this team just didn't have enough overlapping work hours to coordinate and collaborate. So, even me having the opportunity to go have those conversations one-on-one, if I'm being honest, looking back, wasn't really that available.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say thank you for caring enough to do this. This is the work. This is the hard work that we do as team coaches, yeah, like it's an interesting one as far as I think the way I would apply the Flores model, if I did it, I don't know if this will work or not because it's a pretty intense situation. So I don't know what exact request you made to the person in the room and what power dynamic they had. It sounds like there's a person that had some power in the room, and you made a request to that person in front of it, like, can we make this more equitable? And maybe if you asked, how can we make it more equitable? And maybe even pulled, if there is a power dynamic in the room, you probably have to pull that to the side no matter what. But if you ask the leader in front of them, how can we make it more equitable? And they say, I don't know, that's a much better thing than, saying, no, we can't. If the person is saying, no, we can't, then, it's just it might be a leader competence issue.
No, I think I honestly, I jotted down the first thing that came to me. I wouldn't at all expect to solve this problem. I certainly didn't. But I like that angle of coming in with more of a question and a collaboration, and instead of presenting, what was an unpalatable solution to everybody, like it wasn't a palatable solution to me either. I didn't want to be getting up like at the early crack of dawn to make things more equitable. That wasn't a pleasant prospect. So I do think that maybe that would have that's a good angle to consider for next time. So thank you, Aaron.
Yeah, you're welcome. That's I found personally, every time I think of something that's great and I offer it to the team, they always say no. Even if they would have got to it themselves later, that I really have to let them get to it on their own, no matter how long it takes or how painful it is. Thanks for accepting that sort of coaching there, or that idea. Great.
Does putting out a question like that, asking the group how could we turn it from more put everybody onto the same team rather than put people in a more of a confrontational back and forth kind of thing.
Yeah. And people like to help. People, how can we do this? It feels inequitable, or maybe you don't even say that, because then people start to judge whether it's equitable or not equitable. And you just say, I have the feeling that there might be a way that we can get more overlapping hours. How can we do that?
I really liked that comment. I couldn't see who said it, but it actually made me think that I also got the I wasn't as focused on the outcome, the goal, right? Not that equity isn't a goal of mine overall, but the goal was to get the team to work together and to get people to participate and share. And the team wasn't focused on trying to figure out how. So I was trying to do that work for them. And so equity was my idea of like how we could get there. And so thank you for that comment. I can't see who it was that said that, but that actually makes me feel like, oh, I should have zoomed out even further, because equity wasn't the goal. It was getting the team to work together. Equity was just the way I saw through to do that. I really like that comment. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it was Tammy that said it. So thank you, Tammy, for chiming in there. Anything else about this one before we move on? Because Tammy's coming on camera, so I would love to hear her scenario if she has one that she's willing to share.
So I don't really, I guess I have a problem with somebody that I wonder about their sincerity and care and reliability. So,
is there any like details you want to throw out around it that would be useful for this conversation?
No, I guess I don't. The maybe if you have some general ideas on how you might tackle these things if you decide where the problem is.
Yeah, I have well, is this personal or work?
So personal.
Personal. Yeah, that one's so whether it's work or personal, I always try to meet people where they're at. So if they have a certain level of sincerity, reliability, competence, or care, I don't try to change them, but I also do set boundaries for myself. And in this case, it would be like, where am I willing to participate with them and where am I not, given who they are, right? So if they have a certain level of competence, like talking about my best friend who's not good at taking care of stuff, I'm not going to give him something I really care about. It's a boundary, right? I will, play with him on a certain level. Like I'll give him things that I'm not willing to lose or it'll break or I get lost, but I'm not going to give him my wife's diamond ring to hold or something like that, right? Before the wedding.
Something that's
and that actually happened.
Something that's replaceable and that's not all that valuable.
Yeah, like he was my best man, and I didn't let him hold the ring. I gave it to someone else to hold, right? Because I wasn't confident that he would get the ring there, but I knew he would support me emotionally, so that's why he was my best man. Yeah. So meeting people where they're at. I think I have a whole deep dive into boundaries we can go into, which I think is super useful. Where's that boundary stuff? I think it's right here. Hold on a second. Clarify. Is it micromanage?
Thank you for letting me drag you off somewhere else.
No. It was actually something I wanted to go over. Yeah, I didn't write it down, but me and Volker preparing for this had a long conversation about boundaries. And I think it's really important for this particular type of work. Volker and I had a long discussion and basically boiled down to one way to define a boundary is where you'll stop participating. And another way to define a boundary is where you're willing to participate. All right. And boundaries can happen, like this is, I don't want to go there kind of boundary. And there's also the need boundaries. Like I need this. And it's a need sort of defines a boundary. like if you need to eat, it's just like, I don't care who's around me, I need to eat, and it's, I need to do this kind of thing versus, like I'm not participating. But I find the one that's most useful for me is the I will stop participating. That was newish to me. I was able to ask for my needs pretty well, but I wasn't able to disengage when I decided to wasn't able to participate fully anymore. So I'd love to hear other people's comments on how boundaries sort of go into these activities, maybe the aspects of trust, or in the Flores method. It might show up in the negotiation, renegotiation sort of activity that you do. And it can be personal or not, right? Teams can have boundaries all the time, right? Teams say, I'm willing to do this work, but I'm not willing to do that. That's someone else's responsibility to handle operations because I'm doing the coding or something like that. Or, this is cybersecurity is the responsibility of this group, and I'm willing to work with them, but I'm not willing to do that work because it's really not my expertise and I wasn't hired to do it. Happens a lot in union areas, shops. If you have any union shops, job responsibilities are really clearly laid out, and there's just definitely clear spaces between this is the work that's required and not for good reason. I'm very pro. Well, I don't want to. It sometimes comes up politically, but I'm not a union buster. That's for sure. So what are you seeing there about boundaries or needs that may be applicable to building trust?
I think it can be inverted. So say you're a manager or leader and you're mentoring somebody, and it's a siloed sort of situation. Say it's a developer and they're very skilled in a particular area, and you like them to be more cross-functional, learn other skills. And so, and that person is resistant, right? And I think that maybe get to the point of, say, trust. And how do you gain that trust of that person to, open up and try new things because you believe that's better for that person and for the team and for the company. So building trust in that, or maybe getting to that point where that maybe say you're a new manager and coming into a group, and you see the situation where when everybody's specialized and siloed, and it's hopefully better for them to learn different aspects. I think at least trust is part of that too, to get them to go along with what you want them to try out.
Yeah. So if I was thinking about the young developer or the newer, not necessarily have to be young, but the person that's more novice, I mean, do they think you're sincere? Like, should they actually learn this, whatever, right? Have you been reliable in the past? Have you offered them advice and they've taken it and it worked out for them? You might have to start really small, like, coming at 9 o'clock or, something like that, right? That they sort of trust. Competence. Have you mentored people like this before? There's a difference between leadership where you have authority and, hierarchical authority versus implicit authority. And then there's also, are you good at mentoring? And then care. Do you have their best interests in heart? A lot of times they know you have the company's best interest or at least your best interest, but they're not sure if you really got their back.
Yeah.
Like if they left today, would you still have treated them the same and mentored them in this way?
And you might have to overcome some things like compensation. Maybe they've been around a long time and they're really good at whatever they do, and they know if they leave that you'd be in a lurch, and so what's the reward for them to move outside, do something different?
Yeah.
Right? I'm not.
Yeah. It definitely ties in there for sure. I was going to say something else, but I forgot. Let's see. That's fine. Anyone else want to make a comment around that? Around the mentorship, mentee relationship, especially with salary and pay and going outside the normal area.
It's back a bit to the boundary stuff, but one way of showing care is respecting somebody else's boundaries.
Yeah. I was thinking of maybe during the request phase, if maybe the request isn't clear and they haven't sort of accepted it. And so if they know why you're asking them to try something new, and they, like it's for the team for this particular aspect and this, or it's for your career for this, and they understand that, and then they're given clear purview to negotiate. Like, oh, actually, like if it's for their career and they don't agree, then they'd be like, I don't really think that you haven't convinced me that it's really for my career, right? Or maybe you don't quite understand what I want for my career is just a steady paycheck, right? And they don't necessarily want to improve their skills in a specific way, right? Because people are really, really different in what they want out of their job. A lot of us in here are pretty, gung-ho about learning and trying stuff new and growing as a person in our job. But a lot of people don't want that. They literally want to be told what to do and get paid. And the quicker they can do that and get out of that, the better. That's what they want. And it's not our path, and we can't really force our path on them. You know what I mean? Let me go into the renegotiation stuff, because that is okay. Here, I'm going to show you my notes and get you a little bit into the sausage making here. I talked a lot with Volker about the negotiation phase in preparation for this. And this one is the most intricate part. I think it's one of the more intricate parts of the Flores model. So obviously, well, not obviously, the first step is always clarifying the why and the what. Why do you need a PowerPoint? Oh, I need it so I can communicate my story about this particular thing to these people so that they will give me some staff to work with in money budget. They'll give me some budget or something, right? And then what I need? I need to communicate. I need budget, right? Is what they need really. And so that step's clear. Then the how. This is where, as leaders, sometimes we mess up and say, I need the PowerPoint by Tuesday at noon. But if you allow for negotiation in that phase and you let them know what you need to communicate, they may come up with a better thing, like reaching out to people individually or sending text messages, or I'll see them at lunch. Let me talk to them about it. But the how is an interesting thing, because if you, as a employee, if you give them too much detail, the leaders may fall into micromanaging. They may expect very specific things and then tell you how to do very specific things. And so you want to use the how you're going, be clear about the how you're going to do it, to sort of suss out any hidden, implicit, criteria, I think, or requirements needed, but not in such a way that the person asking for it gets attached to the how too tightly, or tries to micromanage you in getting it done. So what do you guys, this is, was really applicable in work, but you may find it personal. Where have you sort of seen this, how to avoid micromanaging, or how to, like this presumptive right to renegotiate? It means, like you said, you think you're going to do it this way. This is how I think I'm going to implement it. And then you change your mind because you learned something and you can rescope. How do you sort of keep that alive when you're working in this type of commitment model?
maybe from the outset, involve them with the goal, the outcome. Say, like, I'd like to have this be done. What are your ideas? So maybe that could help us, because maybe they'll say like, I have no idea, or they'll say something that's totally like, in your belief, not really workable, or they may have a great idea, right? And that could actually maybe move things up, or maybe realize it takes longer to do.
Yeah, with the non-workable one, you just share your concerns. I had this concern. How would we address it? Right? It's like, I have a concern it'll take too long, or that technology is too new, or that we may underestimate and run over. What do you think? Is that likely? Should we try something different? So you can sort of bring those up, and sharing the goals. I mean, this is, I'm assuming we have some Agilists in here and they do Scrum, but this is really clearly laid out in Scrum, right? Because you really only plan the 2 weeks out, and during the 2 weeks you've stated stories, which are client-facing objectives, and you're not telling typically you don't even sign who's doing the work right at the beginning. You kind of pull the work towards you, and people are doing the work. So leader isn't micromanaging the team to say who's doing what particular task when, and all of that. The team sort of figures that out together, and just at the end expects a demo, right, of what they asked for, and that it meets the requirements that they sort of specified, from the client's point of view, right, from the customer's point of view. And so a lot of this is sort of figured out in the framework. And SAFe, they do it with business objectives as well, as I said before. And you actually plan out the whole quarter, but you're not tied to the features that you said you'd get done, or the time frame that you get them done. You actually say, this is the business objective we're going to meet. These are the features, and in which sprints we will complete them. Do you feel this plan is viable? And then they go, yeah, that if you do those features, it will definitely meet this objective. And then during the quarter, you replan every 2 weeks a little bit, hopefully not too much, but you keep replanning and changing your features because you learn stuff. And you purposely put stuff really soft near the end that you're like, this is not well defined and we're not sure when we're going to get this done. But you do have a plan on which you can go back and forth and replan with for the quarter. But your goal is the business objective, right? And I've been working with a specific group for a long time now, like 5 or 6 years now. At this point, we always get over 100% of the value delivered, because this is what we are going to commit to 100%, and then you have some sort of uncommitted stretch stuff, and they always get a little bit of the stretch stuff done. And so they got really, really clear and predictable, which is, our business really loves us now, because they know exactly what they're going to get, and then they can always expect maybe a little bit more. But it involves a lot of renegotiation all throughout the cycle. There isn't like hey, we're going to get all these features done on this date and it's done in 3 months. You hopefully can do the first sprint and maybe the second, and then everything else is sort of moved along as you go. This one, I can trust you to negotiate at the earliest possible, basically renegotiate. So it should say renegotiate. Renegotiate at the earliest possible time. Do meet the objective, and I should probably say to meet the objectives. To meet the objectives in good faith. So these are the two things that, as the leader asking for something, we expect during the execution and the negotiation phase, that we expect the people that we're working with to renegotiate at the earliest possible time that they know learn something new, and to meet this objective in good faith. That's a sincerity. And someone was mentioning earlier where the good faith thing wasn't there, right? I think it's Karsten was mentioning about a group he was working with where there wasn't like to meet the objectives in good faith wasn't actually there. So these are the two things that, we need to suss out if they're actually being sincere that they'll do these two things. And sometimes this is a confidence thing. Some teams don't know how to front load their risks and dependencies and learning stories in their work, so that they can tell you early, and they kind of leave the unknowns to the end, and then they get hit the end with like large sort of issues because they didn't front load the hard work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of testing and instruction to get some learning that if it actually will work for the client or whatever it is, right? So that could be a competence thing.
Great stuff, Aaron.
Yeah. So we've been chatting for about an hour and a half. So I just want to, any last comments anyone wants to do, and then we can wrap up. Happy to have a short conversation or stick around afterwards if someone has any comments. Any last comments? Okay. To close out, I'd like us just to leave us with 2 words. So any 2 words will do. They don't need to be related. Just speak any 2 words into the space, and I'd like to, and I thank you for your time tonight and hanging out with me. So what are your 2 words, and then you can go. Anyone can go.
Eye on a ball and community.
All right. Thanks, Alina.
Zero trust equals more trust.
Thank you. Tammy,
What over how?
Sorry again, Tammy?
What over how?
What over how? Thank you. Bob, what would you like to add?
Trust includes care. Yeah.
Trust includes care. Thank you. And Margo?
Boundaries and permissions.
Love it. All right. Well, thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks so much. Really appreciate it.
My 2 words will be heartfelt.
Oh, love it.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you, Aaron. And I hope to see everyone at the Agile Open.
Yeah.
Thank you, Alina.
Thank you, guys. Margot, I like your glasses.
Appreciate that. Have a good night.
Good night. Happy dinner. Thanks, Aaron.
Yeah. Thank you.